Welcome to the November 2022 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. The weather's starting to get cold and the bird hunting is starting to get hot. November is the month where the deer are rutting, the pheasants are flying, and the big brown trout start spawning in the streams and rivers. November is a great time to be an outdoorsman, in my opinion. I also hope that you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I'm actually filming this the day after Thanksgiving, so I have a belly full of turkey with all the trimmings, and I'm very happy. I had many things to give thanks for this year, and had a perfect feast with my family and loved ones. So I had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope you did as well, no matter where you are. As you also noticed, I escaped this cold weather here in the States and took a trip down south to Mexico to enjoy the last of the warm water down there for saltwater fishing before the water turns over and the wind picks up for the winter. And we had an absolutely great time. If you haven't seen that video, there's some great footage of Nubs and I reeling in Dorado and sailfish. So before I bore you to death with my usual babble, let's get to November's mail. And our first question is from Wyatt in Denver, Colorado. Wyatt wrote, "The buffalo hunting portion of October's Hunt Camp Mail absolutely blew my mind. It was fantastic. It turns out that most of what I thought about buffalo guns used in the bison hunting days was completely false. You presented those facts in a logical way that really connected with me. I already knew that people saying the 4570 was the most popular buffalo cartridge were wrong, but I've been infatuated with the Sharps 1874 since watching the movie Quigley Down Under, and I assume that the Sharps Model 1874 was the most popular buffalo rifle of the day. As your chart pointed out, most of the buffalo herds were already gone by then. Knowing the correct historical context, what do you believe the historical significance of the Sharps 1874 is?" What a great question about a fantastic firearm. Without a doubt, regardless of where bison numbers were in the mid-1870s, the legacy of the Sharps 1874 is in fact directly tied to the bison. Most of the legendary bison hunters in that era preferred the Sharps 1869 or 1874 chambered in one of Sharp's great long-range cartridges of the day. Those Sharps rifles were also just dominating the Creedmoor rifle matches, which really raised their reputation for accuracy at long distances to like legendary status. But the problem with your original assumption is that not a lot of those Sharps 1869 and 1874 rifles were ever produced. They weren't produced in the numbers I think you think they were made in. Only about 1,000 model 1869 rifles were ever made, and just over 6,000 model 1874 sporting rifles were ever made and sold to the public. So there just wasn't a lot of those Sharps rifles out there, especially considering that 10,000 buffalo hunters were heading west every day at one point. But the 1874's history will always be tied to the last of the bison herds. And, it's painfully obvious that bison killing was the primary use of those rifles. When the bison herds were all but gone by 1880, the Sharps factory actually shut down for good. But as you stated, in modern times, most people associate the Sharps 1874 with the movie Quigley Down Under. And our next question is from Lawrence. Lawrence didn't say where he was from. "I found that with my matchmaker die for 30-06, my base to ogive length can vary by as much as 2 thousandths. Is that something that you've seen with yours? I'm using Hornady 168 grain AMAX bullets, so my thought is that it had more to do with the consistency of bullet manufacture than the die. Any thoughts?" Well, Lawrence, I honestly haven't had any issues with my matchmaker dies, to tell you the truth. I think they're pretty good dies. It could be the bullet manufacturer, like you stated, which is fairly common, but measuring base to ogive lengths of individual bullets will reveal if this is the problem pretty quick. I'm actually surprised you haven't done that yet before emailing me. But it could also be inconsistent neck tension, which is actually usually the culprit with this. Sometimes a compressed powder charge will also give you inconsistent overall length. It could even be the tolerances of your press, which I've seen numerous times, and inconsistency in your seating technique. That'll cause different overall lengths. But to be honest with you, when you're chasing 2,000ths, almost anything can be the cause. And reloading is only about 4% reloading, 1% shooting, and about 95% detective work. And our next question is from Walt. Walt wrote, I have a lot of H335 and not a lot of anything else. I saw you can load it for 30-06, but no one really does it. I assume there's a reason for that, but I did find a load chart through Hodgdon for it and a video of a guy on YouTube testing loads. There was one that looked good, but he was shooting 165 grain bullets, and I'm looking to load 150s. Well, honestly, Walt, I think H335 is just a little bit too fast for 30-06 in my opinion, especially with the 165 and 150 grain bullets, jacketed bullets. But, that's the reason you don't see people using it, because it's just too fast probably. I have used that powder for 223 before, but I really didn't like it. I just couldn't get it to work good in anything. I suppose you could use it for really light 120 or 130 grain bullets in 30-06, but expect a lot of empty space in that case and really erratic results with it. So I'd stay away from H335 with your 30-06, honestly. And our next question is from Jake from Huntington Beach, California. Jake wrote, at the end of your October hunt camp mail video, you showed a meme implying that Mossberg owners have sex with their own sisters. Me and my Mossberg 930 take offense with that and want to correct you. Mossberg owners have sex with our cousins. We never stoop so low as to procreate with such close family. Okay, I stand corrected. I suggested before you should test the effectiveness of fly lures on spinning rods. That would kick ass if flies worked on spinning rods. Then you would get the effectiveness of fly fishing and the utility of spinning lures by bringing just one fishing rod. I guess I stand corrected there, Jake. Apparently, Mossberg owners would never have sex with their sisters, cousins only. I apologize. I didn't know the inbred guy walking around with his Mossberg Patriot had such high standards, but apparently he does. On the flies with the spinning rod thing, I think we've all done it a time or two, especially people who've been fishing for a long time. And it might work for tossing out a woolly booger under a bobber or something like that in a lake, but it won't really work well for much else. Honestly, I think a Tenkara rod would work better with flies than a spinning rod ever will. Fly fishing is at least a 90% presentation, and you can't present a dry fly at the required distances with a spinning rod. I mean, you never will do that. And even if you want to do some indicator nymphing or dry dropper fishing for trout, which is the most popular method of fishing flies subsurface, you need to mend the line a lot. And, you can't mend line with a spinning rod setup. So a spinning setup is probably the absolute worst thing you can use to fly fish. That was a good question, though. And our next question is from Dave from Kansas. Dave wrote, Sir Desert Dog, this is Dave from Kansas. I guess I've been knighted, Sir Desert Dog. I like it. I enjoyed your Africa hunting video. Is it my imagination, or did I see your PH carrying his rifle over the shoulder with the muzzle forward on people? Just curious. You've heavily criticized that practice for good reason in prior videos. Thanks again for the education and entertainment. And thank you for the letter, Dave from Kansas. Yeah, I mean, you did see my PH do that, as do 90% or more of the PHs in Africa, especially PHs that specialize in dangerous game. You know, he was near the front of the hunting party, but as you saw, carrying a rifle in such a way will always inevitably muzzle people. You're not going to avoid that, out there stalking around on the bush for 10 to 20 miles in a day. So being the real person that I am, I'm not going to make any excuses for it. What I will tell you is why they do it. They'll tell you that carrying a rifle like that over your shoulder makes it faster to bring the rifle into action if you need to make a quick shot. But most of us here in the States already know that shouldering a rifle off a sling is just as fast. I mean, maybe even faster. And some African PHs, might claim that slings just get snagged constantly while walking through the brush. But, I walk in the same places they do with the sling, and I don't have that issue. As a matter of fact, I think having my hands free to move stuff out of the way as I move through it is a benefit rather than a detriment. But there it is. That's the logic and the talking points you'll get behind why PHs carry the rifle like that. And it doesn't matter if it's a double rifle or a bolt action rifle. Most African PHs carry a rifle in that manner. The reality is that it's become part of the culture of being a PH in Africa. And a lot of American clients, when they go over there, they try to replicate this behavior and act similarly when they visit Africa. It is what it is, and you're not going to change it. If you want to hunt in Africa, it's just something you're going to have to deal with. It's just part of their African culture, so I don't really knock on it. But when us Americans go over there, we're hunting in Texas or Montana or even California, and we're walking around in thick forest and thick brush with our rifle on a sling over our shoulder while we hike around. But for some odd stupid reason, we go to Africa and the sling doesn't work anymore. It makes absolutely no sense, but I think that's what gets me the most about the whole rifle over the shoulder thing, is when Americans go over there and do it. But to the credit of the PHs over there, other than carrying a loaded rifle over their shoulder like that, all African PHs that I've ever dealt with are huge on gun and client safety. So like I said, it is what it is, and I'm not going to make any excuses for it. And our next question is from Mark in Glendale, Arizona. Mark wrote, "It is my understanding that the more birdshot you put into a bird, the more lethal it will be. Knowing this fact, doesn't it make sense to use a full choke all the time?" I mean, that sounds logical, Mark, but that line of thinking is pretty much a fallacy. Yes, you do aim and use the bead on a shotgun when you're shooting turkeys or crippled ducks on the water, but for shooting at flying birds, you don't aim. You point a shotgun with both eyes open while you're swinging the gun. So when shooting flying objects, you'll never be precise. Watch the shot cam footage from a professional shooter, and you'll see that even they have small issues with their leads from shot to shot. It's inevitable. It's an imprecise object. So trying to make an accurate shot, I dare you to go out during dove season, especially late season, and try to make an accurate shot on a zigzagging dove doing 55 miles an hour. It's just not going to happen. And this means that you need a wide enough shot pattern to make up for the imprecise nature of shooting at flying birds. This is why most people pattern shotguns within a 30-inch circle. Inexperienced bird hunters will tell you to choke really tight. So you either kill it or you miss it, but nothing in between. And I'm just telling you, don't listen to those people. Experienced hunters know that being effective at wing shooting requires more than pattern density. You also need adequate pattern dispersion. Also high pattern density can be unethical while wing shooting. One of the key reasons that we're out hunting birds is so we can eat them. And putting too many pellets on that target will absolutely blow up and destroy the meat. And ethical hunters don't deliberately waste game animals. Our next question is from Chris in Hannibal, Missouri. Chris wrote, "Love your videos. What do you believe are the best binoculars in the $500 range?" Well, Chris, I prefer most of the time to use more premium style binoculars, and Leica is where I put my money when the hunt involves serious glassing. You really don't start to see decent glass with binos until you get a little bit over the $500 or $600 range, in my opinion. But to answer your question, the best binocular in that price range is undoubtedly the Leupold BX4 Pro Guide HD. These are made in Japan, not China, to super high quality standards. They have great glass and they have Leupold's lifetime warranty. In my opinion, these are the best mid-price binoculars out right now. And, you can get them anywhere from between $500 and $600 and sometimes even cheaper than that when they're on sale. I know right now I saw some ads through a couple of the optics places where they're having Black Friday sales right now. So it's Black Friday right now. It's a day after Thanksgiving that I'm filming this. And, today you could probably get these things for about $425, which is a great deal. And our next question is from Peter from New Zealand. We've got a Kiwi. Peter wrote, "I watched your hearing protection for the hunter video. Your conclusion was that good hearing protection for hunting doesn't exist yet. I've ordered so many electronic hearing devices online because tactical shooters and stand hunters in the United States recommended them. But you are right. The wind noise and lack of directional awareness make them unusable for real hunting. And here in New Zealand, we hunt in some very windy places. Since that video was posted long ago, I noticed that many Americans are using the new GS Extreme 2.0 ear protection. Have you tried them yet?" Yeah, my wife and I both own a pair of the 2.0s, and I'll admit it, they do work better than the first version, which I really didn't like. But on really windy days, they'll still drive you insane because of that wind noise, and that's on very windy days, and you'll probably end up taking them off like I did. Problems in high wind seem to be the downfall of almost all electronic hearing protection. And honestly, I think the fit on these is also kind of weird, if you know what I mean. These over-the-ear hooks right here, they kind of suck, I'll be honest with you, especially when you're wearing a hat or sunglasses while you're hunting, which I usually am. But I actually use these at the range and for duck hunting in a blind. When you're duck hunting, it's kind of a confined space affair with big shotgun blasts and ear-shattering duck calls going off all morning. In fact, I think aggressive duck calling is worse for the ears than the actual shooting is. So my GS Extreme 2.0s would fall into the category of not perfect for most hunting, but it isn't as wind sensitive as a lot of the alternatives. And it lets you hear ducks and chatter while protecting your ears, basically. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship, I'd say. And our next question is from Steve in Riverside, California. Steve wrote, "I just saw you answer a comment in one of your videos about quail guts stinking. I've noticed this for 30 years, but you are the only person who has ever commented on it. I take a lot of people hunting for the first time, and many new hunters think their quail is rotten or inedible when they clean them, and I have to explain to them that that smell is normal. Can you give me some insight on why quail guts stink so I can explain it to new hunters. It's an absolutely true phenomenon right here. For those of you who don't know, when you open up mini quail to remove the meat out of them, you'll get a blast of foul smelling air from the body cavity. This doesn't mean that your quail is rotten or diseased. It's perfectly normal. I'll even admit it, some duck guts smell just as bad as quail guts. And have any of you ever been around domestic quail or ducks? If you have, you know that their poop is worse than any other bird you'll ever raise. Quail poop and duck poop stinks 100 times worse than chicken poop does. So when you proceed to process your quail out in the field that's been killed with birdshot, that's likely what you're smelling. This is why rapid care of game meat is so important, and why those little suckers stink so bad when you open them up. If you really want to go down this rabbit hole, talk to some experienced old-time hunters about how cleaning your birds will make your farts smell like bird guts. Yeah, that's really a thing. And our next question is David from Provo, Utah. David wrote, "Can you do a review on the federal terminal Ascent bullet? There doesn't seem to be a lot of real-world experience and load data for this bullet." I answered a question, maybe a couple of questions similar to this in past hunt camp mails, and I think my answer is still basically the same. I can't get any terminal Ascent bullets to review. Those bullets haven't been available to reloaders since they came out a couple years ago. In fact, since COVID, Federal really hasn't supported the reloader at all. But I'll admit it, the terminal Ascent does look like it would be a fantastic hunting bullet. It's basically an improved trophy bonded bullet, and that was a good bullet. And I really like the concept behind it. But oddly enough, Federal seems to be pushing the Barnes and Nosler bullets harder in their commercial ammunition than they are with their terminal Ascent bullets. So maybe there's a supply issue with whoever's making the terminal Ascent bullets for Federal. There's a lot of great bullets to choose from these days, though, in lead and copper. So you have a lot of options to choose from these days. And our last question is from Old Hunter in Dallas, Texas. I hope that's your real name, Old Hunter. Old Hunter wrote, "After watching your Zambezi Valley video a couple months ago, I booked a trip with the same outfitter you used." Oh, you're going to love it, man. "I couldn't resist. I've already watched many videos on Africa hunting, and your preparing for a buffalo hunt video was the most helpful by far. Actually, it was more helpful than Boddington's video. I wouldn't go that far. Now I'm just sitting at home dreaming of Africa. I already watched The Ghost in the Darkness, I Dreamed of Africa, and the movie Hatari. Oh, Hatari's a great movie. What other Africa-related movies do you recommend?" I actually thought about doing a video, kind of a follow-up on hunting authors, my video on hunting authors, and hunting books, about hunting or Africa-related videos. But my favorite Africa hunting-related video of all time is an old film called The Naked Prey. I think it really shows the beauty and dangers of colonial Africa, as well as the ignorance of many European elites of the day. I highly recommend the movie The Naked Prey. Of course, The Gods Must Be Crazy is also a must-watch and probably the funniest Africa movie in existence. And, if you get humor along the lines of Monty Python and Benny Hill, you're going to love The Gods Must Be Crazy. It's just, even if you don't get the humor, it's a fantastic story. And my wife absolutely loves the movie Out of Africa, which might be the best movie depicting an African hunter and possibly even the best Africa movie, period. Some other Africa-related movies I like are Something of Value, The Last King of Scotland, White Hunter, Black Heart. It's kind of good, I guess. The Snows of Kilimanjaro, The Last Safari, Zulu. Of course, there's Blood Diamond. As far as documentaries go, the best Africa hunting documentary I've ever seen is currently available for free on YouTube. It's a safari documentary called In the Blood. I know there's a lot of movies out there called In the Blood, but this is specifically a hunting documentary called In the Blood, and I highly recommend it if you find it on YouTube. Well, that wraps up November's Hunt Camp Mail. Here's some memes for this month. And I've been doing a lot of bird hunting this year, and bird numbers are just fantastic where I'm at this year because we were lucky enough to get a good amount of summer storms this year, and it kept the food sources up, which was great. And I've had a lot of great success hunting birds already this season, and I'm reviewing some great products during these hunts, so stay tuned for that kind of material in upcoming videos. To continue my Thanksgiving thoughts, I'd like to give thanks to my viewers and subscribers who find joy and entertainment from my videos and my labor of love. You know, I enjoy making some of these videos, and the fact that many of you can't wait to see them just brings joy to my heart, and I want to thank you for it. You could follow me by hitting my Insta at Desert Dog Hunting. You can also email me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. And as always, good hunting. I know. Some of you are pissed off because I didn't use the bullshit button this month. So for you guys out there, this is for you. Bullshit! Bullshit! Bullshit!